name is Tim Brown. My friends, want to thank you for being willing to hear what we have to say. My brother in Christ and I are here today to share the gospel with you, to say about the truth about Jesus Christ, who is God, come in the flesh. We had a man a few minutes ago said that he believes Jesus is great. I think he denied that Jesus is God, didn't he, Bill? Denied that Jesus is God. I want to start off reading out of Genesis, chapter 1. And I'm sure he's not around to hear this. If he is, that's even better, but that's okay. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God is hovering over the face of the waters. The first verse is what I want to home in on. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. You say, well, that's no big deal. I've heard that a million times. Proves nothing. Let's turn to John, the Gospel of John, chapter 1, and read something that's kind of comparative to it. John, chapter 1. Again, Genesis 1:1 says, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. The Gospel according to John chapter 1 verse 1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through Him, and without Him was not anything that was made. Skipping down to verse 14, we read that the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And that's a reference to Jesus Christ. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was the Creator. And the Word became flesh, and that's Jesus Christ. By Him all things were made, both visible and invisible, and He upholds all things by the word of His power. Looking for a verse here. God made us to give Him glory. God created us in His image, meaning He gave us emotions, He gave us a mind, an intellect, and He gave us a will. And those are the things that He gave us in creating us in His image. The idea of being created in God's image has nothing to do with arms and hands. It has to do with the fact that we share with God intellect, emotions, and a will. And those are the things that we should be using to glorify God. The first question of the Westminster Catechism is, what is the chief end of man? The answer is, the chief end of man is to glorify God and to enjoy Him forever. But we don't glorify God. In our natural state, we are in rebellion against Him. We are in rebellion against Him. You see, we are sinners by birth, by nature, and by choice. Each and every one of us, myself included, have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And if you doubt that, you need to look in God's mirror, the Ten Commandments. And I like to allude to the fact that when you get up in the morning, no doubt, just like me and most everyone else, you look in the mirror. You get up in the morning, the first thing you do before you do much of anything is you go to the bathroom, you look at the mirror to see what kind of things you need to do to straighten yourself up. And you would probably agree with me that anyone who does not do that is foolish. And the greater fool would be someone who looks in the mirror and sees what kind of a mess they've made of themselves overnight in their sleep, and yet does nothing about it. See, the problem is we have a distorted view of ourselves. If you ask most anyone, they're going to say, I would be willing to bet that if I would ask most any of you, do you think you're a good person? You would probably say, yeah, I'm a pretty good person. Well, you need to look into God's mirror. And God says this. In Romans 3. Romans chapter 3, starting in verse 11. No one is righteous, no, not one. No one understands, no one seeks for God. And then no one is all-inclusive. It includes you, it includes me. None of us are good. None of us seek after God. All have turned aside. Together they have become worthless. No one does good, not even one. I would even add that in the Old Testament, it says, I think it's in Isaiah, it says that our best works are nothing more than filthy rags before God. All have turned aside, together they have become worthless. No one does good. No, we're fine, ma'am. You go ahead and call the authorities. We'll talk with them. They've seen us here, so it's okay. All have turned aside, together they have become worthless. No one does good, not even one. Their throat is an open grave. They use their tongue to deceive. The venom of asp is under their lips. Their mouth is full of curses and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. And their paths are ruin and misery, and the way of peace they have not known. There is no fear of God before their eyes. That is a picture of what God says about us as human beings. You've just looked into God's mirror. You just listened to what God says about you and about me. Furthermore, if you want to understand why God says that, look at God's law. See, as I said a minute ago, we are created in God's image to give Him glory by conforming to His character. And if you want to understand God's character, look to God's law. Because God's character is reflected in His law, in His Word. And as I said, you'll probably say you think you're a pretty good person. Let me ask you something. Have you ever told a lie? My friends, if you've ever told a lie, and I'm sure each and every one of us would have to say yes, that shows that we have a deceiving heart. When we lie, we break God's law. It is a slap in God's face. And instead of glorifying God, we blaspheme Him. Because when we tell a lie, we violate God's character because God is true. See, sin is not sin because it says it's sin. Sin is sin because whatever we do is a violation of God's character. When we lie, we violate God's character because God is truth. And no lie comes from God. I'm going to read a little bit, pursue this some more. Go to the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5. You've heard it said, you shall not commit adultery, but I say to you, Jesus is talking, He says, I say to you, that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out, throw it away. I mean, that's a picture, it's hyperbole of how seriously we should take our violation of God's character. Whatever we do that is against God's character, we should be willing to strip it off, because it's better for us to strip those things off and enter into heaven than it is to keep those things and go to hell. But the point here is, people will say that they've never committed adultery, and Jesus here is saying that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery. So for all adulterers at heart, I would say most normal people have looked at someone with lustful intent, because we're all sinful people. If you've ever been angry with someone, Jesus said that's murder of the heart. Anger is the seed of murder. Murder is the fruit of the seed of anger that has been nurtured and held onto and contemplated and grown. The seed of anger is the thing that is planted in our heart that we nurture that could become murder. James chapter 1 talks about that, or James chapter 4 talks about that. What causes quarrels and what causes fights among you? Is it not this, that your passions are at war within you? You desire and you do not have, so you murder. You covet and cannot obtain, and you fight and quarrel. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly to spend it on your passions. point here is this: the reason why we do these things is because of our own selfishness. And again, we are made to glorify God. We're called to die to ourselves, live for others. And here in James chapter 4, we see that so much of the sin that we have is just plain old selfishness. So if you've ever lied, God sees you as a liar. If you've ever had lust in your heart, God sees you as an adulterer at heart, according to Jesus. If you've ever been angry, God says you're a murderer at heart, again, according to Jesus himself. And the big deal about this is that Jesus Christ is the judge before whom you will one day stand to give an account. And you've broken his law. You stand before a judge as a lawbreaker, you will pay a penalty. And we're talking about breaking the law of the highest authority in the universe, and that's God himself. Because when we sin, it's open rebellion and treason against the holy God who made you and I. The God who made you and me made us to be in relationship with him and to honor him with our lives.
Bless you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Oh,
he made us to honor him with our lives. And every time we sin, it's open rebellion against him. It's high treason against the God who made us. All things were made by him and for him. The heavens declare the glory of God. The firmament shows his handiwork. The earth is the Lord and everything in it, the world and all who live in it, because he made it. You see, the entire creation, including yourself and myself, belongs to him by virtue of the fact that he made us all. God made each and every one of us. And he made us for his glory. But you see, when we violate God's law, we must answer to him as the judge. And when we answer to him as the judge, our guilt will either be on ourselves or it will have to be on someone else. People like to talk about doing good works and their good outweighing their bad, and God promises that will never happen. You cannot bribe your way into heaven. Doing good works cannot save you because you have no good works. By the works of the law, no one shall be saved. No one. Because God doesn't just see the work. He sees the depravity of the heart that generated them. We do good works. We do them because we're being selfish. We want to save ourselves, and God will condemn that. So how is it with you? One day you'll stand before this judge, this God who made you. You'll be in his courtroom. And it won't be there to have a guilty verdict or to be found guilty, because he who does not believe in the name of the Son has been condemned already. The day of judgment has nothing to do with a trial. It has to do with the sentencing. That's the day that you want to avoid. And the way to avoid it is to trust in the name of the Son of God, Jesus Christ, who came into this world to live the perfect life that none of us can live. And having done that, pardon me?
Catholic?
No.
Oh, you got to be Catholic.
Had a guy walk by talking about Catholicism. That's another works-based system. You're not saved by baptism. You're not saved by a pope. You're not saved by taking communion. You're not saved by good works. You're saved by grace through faith. And that not of yourself. It is a gift of God. It comes by trusting in the one and only name of Jesus Christ, basing all of your faith on what he has done on your behalf. God made him who knew no sin to be made sin on our behalf, so that we can be made the righteousness of God in him. Jesus Christ paid a debt that he did not owe, in order to pay a debt that we could never pay. Our good works will do nothing but condemn us before a holy God. God sent his spotless Son into this world to live the perfect life that none of us could live. And when we offer up our good works, we're basically saying that God giving up his holy Son was not good enough. And that's blasphemy against God. So we come to you today to let you know that God in his forbearance has given you another day, just as he's given each and every one of us, given us a beautiful day. God has given us by his grace air to breathe, food to eat, things to drink, to enjoy, friends to be around, and family to love. But he calls all men everywhere to repentance. Each and every one of us is called to repentance. No liars, no thieves, no coveters, no homosexuals, no fornicators, and even the cowardly, those afraid of coming to Christ because they don't want to give up their sin, will enter the kingdom of heaven. 1 Corinthians 15, I'm sorry. 1 Corinthians 15. For I delivered to you as of first importance what I also received, that Christ died for our sins in accordance with the Scripture, that he was buried, and that he was raised on the third day according to the Scripture, and that he appeared to Cephas and to 12, and he appeared to more than 500 brothers at one time, most of whom are still alive, although some have died. Then he appeared to James and to all the apostles, last of all as to one untimely born. He appeared also to me. But this is the crux of what we're getting at here. For I delivered to you as of first importance. If you want to know what is of first importance, listen carefully. That Jesus Christ died for our sins in accordance with the Scriptures, that he was buried, and that he was raised on the third day in accordance with the Scriptures. You see, Jesus Christ, as I said already, came to this earth and lived a perfect life that none of us could live, and yet paid a debt on the cross that he did not owe. You see, God made him who knew no sin, he made sin on our behalf, so that we could be made the righteousness of God in him. He who was rich became poor, so that we who are poor could, through his poverty, become rich. We have nothing on our own that we can offer to God to get us into heaven. Scripture is clear that our own righteousness is like filthy rags before God. And that's as simple as it gets. You say, well, I don't think I'm afraid of anything. I mean, after all, God's not struck me dead yet. My friends, that's only because God is forbearing. You see, outside of Christ, your life is nothing but open rebellion against him. You stop and think about it. You've got somebody that mistreats you and blasphemes you, or speaks poorly of you and is abusive to you and hates you, and you continually give them good things anyway, trying to appease them, trying to help them understand that you care, and they keep mistreating you and doing what they do. And you do it because you want them to understand that you care, and it should lead them to a heart change about you. And God is doing the same thing. As I said a minute ago, so many of you, no doubt, are saying, well, God has not done anything with me yet. Certainly I'm okay. You see, like I said, outside of Christ, your life is an open rebellion against him. But God is forbearing. Even in your rebellion, he continues to give you food to eat, air to breathe, water to drink, everything in life that you enjoy, because it all comes from him. And the reason why he does it, we can read about in Romans chapter 2, verse 4. We presume on the riches of his kindness and forbearance of David, not knowing that God's kindness is meant to lead you to repentance. But because of your hard and impenitent heart, you are storing up wrath for yourself on a day of wrath, when God's righteous judgment will be revealed. There is coming a day when his righteousness and his wrath will be revealed. We continue on, we play games with ourselves and acting as if things are just going to continue to go on the way they have been. And I guarantee you it's not going to happen. right before the global flood of Noah's day, people were probably saying the same thing. Oh, nothing's going to happen. What's rain? They think it was just going to keep going on the way they have been. I promise you, my friends, that's not going to happen. It didn't happen the first time, and it's not going to happen this time. Because God is holy and just and righteous. And He will judge those who reject His one and only Son. Because God so loved the world that He gave His one and only Son, that whoever believes in Him will never perish but have everlasting life. God made Him who knew no sin to be made sin, and on our behalf, so that we can be made the righteousness of God in Him. I'll read it again. For God so loved the world that He gave His only Son, that whosoever believes in Him should not perish but have eternal life. For God did not send His Son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through Him. Whoever believes in Him is not condemned, but whoever does not believe is condemned already, because he has not believed in the name of the only Son of God. And this is the judgment, that light has come into the world, and people love the darkness rather than the light, because their works were evil. For everyone who does wicked things hates the light, and does not come into the light, lest his works should be exposed. For whoever does what is true comes to the light, so that it may be clearly seen that his works have been carried out in God. So we come to you today to give you the gospel. I would only leave you with one word or one thought. That God has been overlooking our sin. For some time He kind of winks and lets it go by. But God now calls all men everywhere to repent and to trust in the finished work of His Son, whom He sent to die for sinners. I guess Shell's going to be up here one more time anyway. I want to thank you for listening.